All the way back in my Forgotten Controversies of YouTube video, I referenced an incident known as the 2016 CSGO Lotto Scandal, where I would do a quick preface on the scandal and the culprits involved, being Tom Cassiel and Tmartin, but I didn't really go into depth about this really interesting topic, and seeing as I had a lot of fun making my last scandal video, I figured y'all would enjoy this interesting story behind this scandal and the once iconic and beloved criminal YouTubers involved. And to start, I think we need to give a quick preface on what CSGO, or Counter-Strike Global Offensive, is. All the way back in 2012, the CSGO video game would be released to the public, and following the release of the game in August of 2012, with a surprisingly low turnout for the game, creator and publisher for the game, Valve, had to do something to fix this. So with a series of updates and patches for the game, come 2013, the Counter-Strike community would be willing to give the new game a chance, and with practical overnight love and praise from the CSGO video game, it was seen as a cultural success, so much so, it's reported that the Valve company alone makes a reported around $54 million each month alone off of the culturally iconic video game. But how is this realistically possible, since it's very unlikely the profit margin of that many people who would be buying the game wouldn't make any sense? Well, where the real money is coming in for the game is in the commonly scummyish but effective way in the use of microtransactions, which, to keep it simple, is either a way to advance quicker or make yourself look cooler in a video game by paying real life money. And with a reported well over 1 million people still playing the CSGO video game as of 2023, makes quite a lot of sense on how and why Valve makes so much money off of the game. But what really sets apart CSGO from a lot of other microtransaction heavy and oriented video games is its somewhat complex and elaborate trading system in the game that gives it a whole new dynamic unlike basically any other game for the time, well, at least. But what was the real appeal about this trading system was the fact of how you could get real money for in-game items, more specifically for weapons. And don't even get me started on what happens if you get a knife. But going back on topic, this trading and buying system, especially on YouTube, is so common, you could argue that it's really its own niche and genre on YouTube. And with this practice, going back years on end, I think we can almost say that the Valve company has possibly made $1 billion industry. And come the year 2015, this extremely popular and lucrative gambling trend was at an all-time high, and with it, a particularly notable and popular website known as CSGO Lotto was created in December of 2015, when, as mentioned, YouTubers Tmartin and Tom Cassiel would heavily promote the CSGO gambling website, and from there, both of these YouTubers would make pretty extensive videos and even series on their CSGO unboxings and loot crate gambling sessions, in turn making more overall popularity for the now extremely popular and extremely well-known site by now, come 2016. And with the gambling website that popped up seemingly as popular as CSGO Lotto did, and making as much money as you could imagine, questions were only destined to be asked on who and why this extremely popular website was created. And come the summer of 2016, the story behind this website would slowly start to unravel, and in June of 2016, that very thing would happen, when YouTuber known as Honor the Call, seemingly in an archive channel, goes over in a 10-part series about why he calls in a quote-unquote biggest scandal in COD community history, where YouTuber Honor the Call would directly call out both YouTuber Tmartin and Tom Cassiel about faking their reactions, and as well as both of them being co-owner and owners of the CSGO Lotto website, in a very convincing video, all things considered. But following these accusations online against the CSGO Lotto website, and as well as against Tmartin and Tom Cassiel, would lead to a major controversy. So much so, major YouTuber controversialist commentator H3H3 in July of 2016 would make a full video on breaking the controversy, as well as to point out that whether or not Tmartin and Tom Cassiel were rigging the bets, the fact that they could is a major critical problem involving the legitimacy of their vast videos on promoting the CSGO Lotto website. But this really leaves us with why, in the first place, both of these extremely successful YouTubers would make a CSGO Lotto scam website, despite both of them being very popular YouTubers well before this controversy. And the unfortunate but very real truth is that there is simply a lot of money in the gambling industry as it is, and with this new revolutionary online form of gambling was simply too much to turn down, and with their massive audiences was an easy and impactful way to advertise and promote their gambling website. So by this point, I think it's very clear that both Tmartin and Tom Cassiel were in quite a lot of trouble for manipulating their fans and the internet on them being the owners of the CSGO Lotto site, and with following the response from both of these YouTubers. First, Tom Cassiel would go down a much more apologetic and remorseful route on his actions on the whole controversy, but judging by his comments section on his response of the scandal, I'd say people weren't so willing to bring him in with open arms. And on the other hand, YouTuber Tmartin took a more manipulative and defensive response on the scandal, with it being reported that in July of 2016, Tmartin would post a now long deleted but re-upload a controversial video on him defending his actions on being the owner of the CSGO Lotto website, as well as him in the video pointing out that it was public information on him being the owner of the CSGO Lotto website, which is technically true due to it being a legal requirement to report on if you're the owner of a company, and from the HTC discovered it was the case that both Tmartin and Tom Cassiel were indeed the owners of the CSGO Lotto website. But to say that it was generally known and stated information that both Syndicate and Tmartin were the owners of the CSGO Lotto website would be ridiculous and extremely false. So following this extreme fraudulence and massive attention that this scandal was receiving, the FTC, or known as Federal Trade Commission, would get involved to investigate the CSGO Lotto website, as well as Tmartin and Tom Cassiel for their clear yet extreme fraudulence surrounding them and their website. So with the FTC hot on his ass, Tmartin would do a complete 180 on the situation. First, talking to his dog, then doing the classic YouTuber apology sigh, sucking up to his fans, and finally apologizing for manipulating and deceiving his fans, and at the end of the video, more sucking up to his fans. But online, the internet was not having any of it, calling out, shitting on, and just overall hating on Tmartin and Tom Syndicate all throughout this controversy. However, in the wake of this controversy, a much more bigger and legally devastating problem for the company basically overseeing and turning a blind eye to all of this, Valve, would occur, with them extremely violating the COPPA Act, or Children's Online Piracy Protection Act, an act made in 2000 to protect the internet security and privacy of our most vulnerable, children, and with Valve getting a 5% cut out of every purchase or made gamble/bet on any transaction made on these websites. With both Tmartin's and Tom Cassiel's young audience, it would soon be discovered that the Valve company was potentially making millions of dollars off of people under 18, in turn heavily violating the COPPA Act, in turn possibly breaking thousands of federal laws. So we're soon following these accusations against Valve. It was reported that a major crackdown from Valve was occurring against the seemingly exposed underground gambling ring to not get as badly screwed over by the FTC compared to what they were going through come July of 2016. However, the major problem is this seemingly exposed CSGO Lotto gambling ring wasn't really underground or really that secret for that matter, such as mentioned, Valve getting a 5% cut on every purchase or gamble involving these transactions, as well as the obvious fact that online, such as websites like YouTube and the almost countless amount of gambling websites online that are associated with CSGO, really makes it seem like, at least around the time of 2016 when this controversy was in the full swing, Valve, as a way to distance themselves and crack down on these sites to make the company look more good side in all of this, more than likely heavily crack down on these CSGO gambling websites to do just that. But around this time, with investigation from the FTC, it was discovered that both Tmartin and Tom Cassiel were paying off multiple online gambling influencers thousands of dollars just to promote their CSGO Lotto website. So on top of both syndicates and Tmartin's own controversy, when promoting their gambling site to their young audience, it would get increasingly worse for them due to basically hiring other trusted gaming influencers to promote their gambling website. However, come September of 2017, when it's clear that Tmartin and Tom Cassiel would more than likely be in a lot of extreme trouble for their seemingly extreme criminal acts, as it would be reported from the FTC, both Tmartin and Tom Cassiel would seemingly get away scot-free with their almost federal-level crimes due to them basically getting a warning and no charges, not even any criminal fines or penalties on what they have done. Just a warning and a be more transparent requirement, and that was it. And as for the multiple reported gaming influencers in the scandal, reportedly just had warning letters sent to them as the only way of repercussion, and as well as a way to scare these influencers into not doing something as fraudulent and illegal, whether knowingly or unknowingly again. But following the major controversy that occurred throughout the June of 2016 to the September of 2017 era, with this major scandal involving CSGO, gambling, the market would basically take a turn for the worse, such as fallout throughout the CSGO mainstream, as well as mentioned, with Valve cracking down on these CSGO gambling sites made it that much more harder to sell, trade, and of course gamble as a part of their new policy, and make sure that Valve is keeping a closer eye on this very shady market. However, come May of 2023, seemingly in the slow but surely overall death of CSGO Lotto, Valve would be announcing that in Steam's new code of conduct, they would be outright banning gambling, and whether this be because there was no profit in the gambling part of the game, or whether the controversy from years past was too much and finally catching up to the company outright banned gambling. And as for Trevor Martin and Tom Cassiel, things would seemingly end up very well for them in the end as well, with ironically enough, as it is in the search of me finding information on how Trevor Martin is doing in 2023, on one of the first websites I did research on, I was smothered with advertisements and pop-ups on CSGO trading and gambling, almost as if his name is so slowly associated with this crazy event that happened over 7 years ago, as of 2023. But seeing as it is reported that Tmartin does have a net worth of around $5 million, I'd say he's doing pretty well. And as for Tom Cassiel, the same thing could easily be said about him, cause much like Tmartin, with a reported net worth of a total of $6 million, as late as October of 2023, being reported to be one of the most uncancelable men in the internet, despite in 2020 being reported to cause major, shall we say, a sexual crime when compared to a lot of other YouTubers who have outright been disavowed by the internet. Tom Cassiel, on the other hand, has managed to tame and even ride the waves of internet cancelability and hate that he has received over the years, and arguably has used it to his advantage. And on the other hand, other than the sexual assault, you gotta give him credit for that. But in the years following, with the FTC, as well as the COPPA Act, working together to further protect children's online rights, especially was just another hallmark, an example on how in the modern day, more and more, as we see the internet has become more and more tame and controlled as a result, but at the same time, at least to an extent, understandable, just due to the overall craziness and unpredictability that as a whole was occurring on the internet. Well, I hope you enjoyed this very interesting and crazy story on this scandal. It really puts into perspective on just how things were back in the early days of the internet, from a little bit of cancer, greed, fun, and nostalgia, all wrapped up into one. And regardless of what you think, the CSGO Lotto scandal is definitely something, at least to an extent, I think we can all agree upon. But with that, I've been Skipper's Son, and I hope y'all have a great day.